All right, I teased this earlier. Let's get right to it. There is now a statement that has been made by Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who's on the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 riots. She says they have firsthand testimony that Ivanka Trump, among others, but Ivanka Trump, the former president's own daughter, asked Donald Trump, please do something to stop these riots on January 6th. And of course, he did not. And this continues to kind of flesh out the picture that we are building about exactly who did what and when on that day. What were the goals? What were the intentions? What were the priorities of different people? And this is just unbelievable. Liz Cheney, we have firsthand testimony. Ivanka asked Trump to stop the January 6th Capitol riot. The House Select Committee investigating the riots has received firsthand testimony that Trump's daughter Ivanka twice asked him to intervene. Trump was watching the riot unfold on TV while sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office at the time. Let's go right into the clips. This is Liz Cheney appearing yesterday with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. It's everything we imagined, guys.
Is his failure to make that statement criminal negligence?
You know, I think that there are a number of, as the chairman said, potential criminal statutes at issue here. But I think that there's absolutely no question that it was a dereliction of duty. And I think one of the things the committee needs to look at as we're looking at a legislative purpose is whether we need enhanced penalties for that kind of dereliction of duty.
Now, I want to be real. There's a reason she's saying this. And this goes back to what we talked about last week. Officially, a congressional committee's main purpose can't be to figure out if someone committed a crime. And Trump has tried to stop the investigation by saying they're primarily just looking to see if I committed a crime. Liz Cheney is saying exactly what she has to say. Now, whether it's true, maybe they are primarily looking at whether Trump committed a crime, but at least what has to be said is our interest is, as lawmakers, are there laws we need to pass to prevent this from happening again? If we happen to come across crimes that were committed in so figuring that out, then we can refer those crimes. If you saw that segment last week, you understand the legal relevance of that. But let's continue.
But I think it's also important for the American people to understand how dangerous Donald Trump was. We know as he was sitting there in the dining room next to the Oval Office, members of his staff were pleading with him to go on television, to tell people to stop. We know Leader McCarthy was pleading with him to do that. We know members of his family. We know his daughter. We have firsthand testimony that his daughter Ivanka went in at least twice to ask him to please stop this violence. Any man who would not do so, any man who would provoke a violent assault on the Capitol to stop the counting of electoral votes, any man who would watch television as police officers were being beaten, as his supporters were invading the Capitol of the United States, is clearly unfit for future office, clearly can never be anywhere near the Oval Office ever again.
So this was a very interesting and wide-ranging interview. Let's go to another segment here where the topic is, again, at any point, Trump could have put a stop to this, any point, and he did not.
We're joined now by the vice chair of the committee, Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Congresswoman Cheney, thank you for joining us again this morning. Happy New Year to you. You know, you were alarmed by this from the very start, from the first moments on January 6th when this started to unfold. You've cut a lonely path in your party. Have you been surprised by anything you found over the last year?
Well, I've certainly been surprised by many things. I think that in the piece that you played by John Carl just a few moments ago, he touched on the fact that we know now, we are learning much more about what former President Trump was doing while the violent assault was underway. The committee has firsthand testimony now that he was sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office watching the attack on television as the assault on the Capitol occurred. We know, as you know well, that the briefing room at the White House is just a mere few steps from the Oval Office. The president could have at any moment walked those very few steps into the briefing room, gone on live television, and told his supporters who were assaulting the Capitol to stop. He could have told them to stand down. He could have told them to go home. And he failed to do so. It's hard to imagine a more significant and more serious dereliction of duty.
It's funny to say he failed because he chose not to do it. Failed almost suggests he wasn't able, but he chose not to. And 2/3 of the country and a lot of the world asked the exact same questions Liz Cheney is asking here, which is why not do it? And one last segment here. And again, this is Liz Cheney. She's all power to her. She's saying we have to be loyal here to the country, not to Trump. And this isn't good for the Republican Party. Liz Cheney is a right-wing Republican with whom I disagree on just about everything. She voted with Trump something like 93% of the time. But on this particular issue, she is correct.
You're about as stalwart Republican as I've ever met. You come from a long line of Republicans as well. Of course, your father served in the White House. Your mother served in administrations as well. How do you explain, given your belief, your views, and your background, why a majority of Republicans today would reelect Donald Trump?
Look, I think that we're in a situation as a nation where I certainly have very strong disagreements with policies of the Biden administration. I think that the policies that President Biden has adopted are the wrong ones for this country. I think we need conservative, principled leadership. But the Republican Party has to make a choice. We can either be loyal to our Constitution or loyal to Donald Trump, but we cannot be both. And the nation needs a Republican Party that is based on substance and values and principles. And we've got to get back to that if we want to get this nation back on track. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, we can't be a party that's based on lies. We've got to be based on a foundation of truth and fidelity to the rule of law.
So listen, she's saying all the right things, and I applaud her for it. I do. This is still not someone who's going to be one of our political allies. But would we be better off if more Republicans saw Trumpism and their party and country really as three different things, and that you can be on the side of one or two of those without having to stand by Donald Trump? Of course we would be better off. Of course we would be better off. So there is Liz Cheney. Ivanka, firsthand testimony that Ivanka multiple times tried to get Trump to do something, and Trump didn't until hours later said in a video, "It's time to go home. We love you. We know why you're here. It was stolen, but it's time to go home." A completely pathetic, almost non-reaction to the horrors of January 6th. And Trump will be doing a press conference on Thursday, January 6th, the anniversary of the riots, making some kind of statement. We don't know what that will be, but we can be almost certain it's going to be completely whacked out. One of our sponsors is Four Sigmatic, the company best known for their delicious mushroom coffee. Four Sigmatic's mushroom coffee is organic, fair trade, single origin Arabica coffee with both lion's mane and chaga mushrooms. Chaga mushrooms have actually been shown to have potential in supporting the immune system in peer-reviewed studies. I've been drinking Four Sigmatic coffee a lot lately. It actually doesn't taste anything like mushrooms. It just tastes like any delicious coffee. But it's really easy on my stomach, doesn't give me any jittery feeling or a midday crash. And they have over 20,000 five-star reviews. And best of all, if you don't love it, you'll get 100% of your money back because they stand behind their product. You've got nothing to lose by giving it a try. Four Sigmatic is giving my audience up to 40% off and free shipping when you go to foursigmatic.com/Pacman. The link is right underneath this video.